Good evening and welcome back to Daily Red Devil for all of your latest Manchester United transfer news and talk. And as always, we're back with another massive show for you guys this evening. But before we jump into that, please do smash a like on the video and please do subscribe to the channel if you are new. On the show tonight, we're of course going to be talking a little bit about the Jadon Sancho situation, and there has been a massive twist in the last couple of seconds, which we will touch on in a couple of minutes' time. We're also going to be talking about Pellistri, who looks set to get a new contract at Manchester United, which is really, really positive. Also going to be talking about, we're going to be reacting even to the quotes from the interview that Mike Phelan has done today. Mad, some of the stuff that he's come out with about Ronaldo and about the mentality at Manchester United and a couple of other things. We will be talking about that. We'll also be talking about Manchester United trying to sign a 16-year-old winger from Red Bull Leipzig. Sorry, not from Red Bull Leipzig, from Croatia. We're talking about that amongst some other things as well. Do get involved in the comment section. Do let me know your thoughts on everything we discuss on the show today, as I always do like to see what you guys have to say. Right, let's get straight on into it then. So let's start off with the Jadon Sancho one, because in the last couple of minutes, we can confirm that Jadon Sancho has officially deleted the tweet. The tweet is gone. Go and have a look for yourself. The tweet has disappeared. Jadon Sancho is no longer pinned that tweet at the top of his feed. He has removed it. The tweet that everybody thought was ridiculous, we thought that what was the end of his career at Manchester United, it is gone. It's nowhere to be seen. And you know what? Hopefully, let's hope that Jadon Sancho comes out with an apology in the next hour. Let's hope that he comes out, he rectifies his wrongdoings, and maybe there can be a future for him at Manchester United. Because I think that if him and Erik ten Hag have had positive talks today, then maybe we can turn this around. Maybe this can be turned around. Obviously, as I said, this has only just come out in the last couple of minutes that this has been confirmed. Obviously, if you want to go and have a look for yourself, you can go on Jadon Sancho's Twitter. The tweet is gone. And yeah, I mean, it was up for 8 days. It sat there for a very, very long time. Obviously, there was a lot of people reacting badly to this, me included, saying that it was completely unacceptable, saying that Jadon should know better, saying it's the right approach. And maybe he's been said that he's going to start the game against Brighton on Saturday. I mean, if he's ever going to get any game time, it has to be now. Anthony's out of the squad. Amad Diallo's injured. Pellistri, for whatever reason, doesn't get game time. If he wasn't going to play on Saturday, then who knows when he's ever going to play. The tweet has gone, though, and does this now mean that an apology is on the way? I think it does. Some people in the chat are saying it's too late. Mark says, breaking news, Sancho's tweet is no more. I get it. Like, obviously, it sounds a bit stupid, but obviously, I do think it is quite important in the grand scheme of things, because that tweet has been sat there, pinned on his Twitter page for the last week. Sorry, for the last 8 days. I still think it's going to be very difficult for me to forgive and forget, personally. You know, when you lose trust in somebody, it's very, very hard to rebuild it. And you know, if this was a player who'd been the best player for Manchester United for the last 10 years and he did one tiny thing wrong, you might be able to eventually find a place of forgiveness in your heart. But Jadon Sancho hasn't exactly lit up the league, has he, since he's been here? He's been very, very underwhelming. And then you get stuff like this and it's just a bit of a joke. But the tweet is gone, and I would almost say that in the next hour or so, we will get some sort of statement from Jadon Sancho, probably explaining his side of things, probably some sort of apology, saying that him and Ten Hag have now made up. And you know what? That would then be the last chance for Jadon Sancho at Manchester United. If it doesn't work, then he has to go. Maybe he's been told that he can go in January. Obviously, that was what was being reported this morning, that apparently Jadon Sancho will leave the club in January. So maybe he's been said, okay, you've got your opinions and all the rest of it. You have to remove that tweet. You'll get some game time between now and January, but in January you can then go. Simon says his career is over regardless of any tweet being deleted. Yeah, I get it. Mop says the damage is already done. Mumra says the damage is already done. Sancho needs to be sold. Irvin says doesn't mean anything. The club made Sancho remove it. He has to be gone, just as his tweet. That's the thing, isn't it? The question that I ask myself after this situation, after the tweet gets deleted, is is there any sincerity to this? You know, to leave something pinned on your Twitter page for 8 days clearly doesn't show that you have any sincerity, does it? You know, he's removed it now, great, but why has he removed that? Has he removed that because Erik ten Hag said, I'm going to give you some game time now, remove the tweet? You know, we don't know where that's come from. I think that in contractual law, again, I'm not a lawyer, I'm just giving my opinion here, but I think that, you know, players aren't allowed to come out and do what Jadon Sancho has done. So maybe they've said, you know, legally, you know, you're breaking the terms of your contract. We don't know, and I'm sure it will all come out in the next couple of days, and we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. But the tweet is gone, and I would expect in the next hour or so we will get some sort of statement either from Manchester United, either from Jadon Sancho, or either just from some of the UK journalists. But of course, we will let you guys know when that happens. What does everybody think as well of the screen today? I've changed it up a bit. I'm not that happy with the overlay thing I had before. I've got a new studio coming in probably about a month's time. We'll be moving into a new studio, which is going to be completely different to this, different backdrop. But yeah, I didn't really like the overlay, so I got rid of it. Let me know what you guys think. Do you prefer it without the overlay? I think it looks a little bit better. I think it looks a little bit more natural, a little bit more like we're talking to each other and having a conversation, opposed to like a news channel with like the text going along the bottom. But let me know what you guys think. Sorry to change the conversation there. I just wanted to get you guys' opinions. Do you prefer how the video looks today, or do you like it when it has the rest of the stuff on the screen? I prefer it like this, but obviously please do let me know your guys' opinions on this, on the change. Somebody says he's finally come back to his senses. Yes. Emmy says Sancho will play for Manchester United. Fred says with several big clubs interested, he doesn't give a toot. Somebody says it could be that Sancho doesn't operate optimally until he's in trouble. Maybe. I think that he's obviously had a conversation with Erik ten Hag today, and he said, you know, you've got to get rid of the tweet, and maybe they're going to move forward positively. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, do let me know what you think of the new screen today. I prefer it personally. I think it's a little bit more natural. Let's move on to the next story, though. Let's keep things rolling on the show this evening. So Chris Wheeler has come out earlier on today saying that Jadon Sancho has had discussions with Erik ten Hag in regards to the ongoing issues, and further talks are now expected. He goes on to say that this situation won't be resolved overnight. Well, maybe it has been resolved. Maybe it has. I think at this point it probably has. But we'll have to wait and see what happens, won't we, with that one. Now, let's move on to the next topic, though, because I don't want to sit here and talk about Jadon Sancho all day long. There was a little bit of an interview earlier on with Mike Phelan, which I wanted to touch on today, and it's completely blown my mind. It has, and I know some of you will probably be thinking, why are we talking about this? But I think it's really important, right? So Mike Phelan obviously was one of the assistants when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was here, which was when Ronaldo was also here, right? So he's been talking about his time at Manchester United. It was his first interview since, obviously, Ole and the rest of them have left. And Mike Phelan was talking about Ronaldo. He says, I liked it because he didn't want his standards to drop. He wanted other people's standards to come up. And sometimes you lose a few people along the way when that happens. I remember certain times when Ronaldo pushed hard, and he didn't get much reaction or much response, and there was frustration. He then goes on to say, and then there's another article that's come out saying that Cristiano Ronaldo lost the Manchester United dressing room due to his massively high standards, reveals Mike Phelan as he opens up on the Portuguese legend's fateful second spell at Manchester United. And the reason that I wanted to bring this into the show, right, is because it just completely shows how there's a mentality issue at Manchester United, okay? The fact that Cristiano Ronaldo, one of the greatest goal scorers of all time, comes back to Manchester United and he's having to try and encourage the other players around him to perform better. He's having to try and motivate them. And you know what they then do? They don't get motivated by it. They then try and get rid of him. They say, we don't want this guy. Get him out of here, you know? And he falls out with the dressing room. And I know that Ronaldo leaving is old news. This was January 2022. It was a very, very long time ago, and it is old news. But the reason that I bring this into the show is because it shows how bad the mentality is at Manchester United. The fact that you have somebody coming in, right, who's in his mid-30s, somebody who could quite easily just sit there and do nothing. And he comes in there and he's challenging the other players around him to be better. He's challenging them to improve. And they don't get anything from that, right? They don't go, oh my God, we've got one of the greatest players ever here. We need to be better. We need to, you know, try and be on his level. They get offended by it. Their egos get rubbed up the wrong way. And then they ultimately fall out with him. I mean, it's mad, isn't it? And it just shows how bad the mentality is with some of these players. Yeah, crazy. Absolutely mad. But let me know what you think about that one. How do you feel about these things from Mike Phelan? Are you interested in this? Maybe you're not. But the main point of this is, right, Mike Phelan on Cristiano Ronaldo, he didn't want his standards to drop. He wanted other people's standards to come up. Mike Phelan on Erik ten Hag, there is definitely a difference in standards. You can see that. Absolutely mad it is. And then he also goes on to say the second time around, Ronaldo came in a lot older and a lot more opinionated, strong-willed. He still had massively high standards and was terrific to work with. but I'd probably say a tougher mindset. He had been at Manchester United, he had been at Portugal, he had been at Madrid. So it's kind of given us a little bit of clarity of what actually happened with the Cristiano Ronaldo situation. You know, the fact that he came back and he still had more mentality and more desire and drive at 35 than some of these players, you know, that were in their early 20s did. And they didn't feel inspired by him coming in. They felt threatened. They felt that they were being, you know, told to do more than they should have, and that Ronaldo was almost looking down on them. I mean, if I was in that dressing room, I would have been every single day, I would have been inspired by seeing Cristiano Ronaldo in there. I would have been inspired by him being the last one to leave training. I would have been inspired by his diet. I wouldn't have been sat there throwing my toys out of the pram. Sim says, Ronaldo said the chef was still making burger and chips, beans on toast. Now they've got a new chef. I wonder why. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to, you know, call out the people who work at Old Trafford and Carrington, because, you know, they're just normal people like me and you. They're not, you know, these mega rich celebrities who, you know, footballers who you can criticize and you kind of feel like, you know, you're entitled to say he's on 350 grand a week. So I'm not going to call out the chef at Old Trafford, but obviously Ronaldo didn't he? In that interview with Piers Morgan, he said the swimming pool was cracked. He said the gym hasn't been updated in 15 years. You know, he said the chefs is the same as 15 years ago. He said, you know, the food they're giving isn't good. And that all boils down to the mindset and the mentality. There's no way that you can win games like Manchester City do if all of those things behind the scenes are not, you know, are not up to the standards they should be. Let's read out what everyone else is saying quickly. Somebody says, the Cristiano Ronaldo story suggests that Harry Maguire was a dressing room virus. I mean, imagine if you're Ronaldo, right? One of the greatest players of all time, if not the greatest player of all time. And you come in and you look across the dressing room and you see Harry Maguire sat there looking at you in the face. I mean, that is enough to make you have nightmares, isn't it? It really, really is. I don't mean to be mean to Harry Maguire, but it literally is the stuff of nightmares. Just a quick one. Everybody who's watching the show this evening, please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel if you're new. It does really help the channel to grow. So please go and do that if you haven't already. We're only 15 subscribers away from 18,300. So let's see if we can hit that by the end of today's show. And if you do have any questions or anything you want to get in the chat, I will try and read out as many before the show ends. So do get involved. And yeah, I'll circle back to the chat in a couple of minutes' time. Right, let's move on to the next story, though. Let's talk a little bit about... Let's just end this little bit on Mike Phelan quickly. So he was also talking about Ralf Rangnick, because obviously I think Mike Phelan was still there, wasn't he, when Ralf Rangnick was there? Because they sacked Ollie, but they kept all of the backroom staff, didn't they? So he says, I don't know what conversations he had to get. He had to have to get the role, but he tried really hard. It didn't work out in the interest of all parties. I mean, I think we can all say that Ralf Rangnick, from a managerial perspective, from a football perspective, was one of the worst managers we've ever had. From a director of football perspective, I think he would have been the correct person to, you know, to be alongside Erik ten Hag and to take us into the future. And I do sometimes find myself wondering, imagine what would have happened in our recruitment if we'd have kept Ralf Rangnick. You saw some of the players he wanted to bring in, right? Some of the players that Ralf wanted would have been way better than what we were looking at. You know, he had a massive list of these talented players, mainly from the Bundesliga, that he'd identified as people to bring into the club. You know, there was people like Moussa Diaby, there was people like Gvardiol, there was Nkunku, there was all these players that Ralf Rangnick was suggesting to Manchester United, but ultimately in the end they got rid of him, and he's now, I think, is he the manager of Austria? He's the manager of somebody, isn't he, an international team. Fred says, what exactly did Mike Phelan do? Mate, I'll be honest with you, I have absolutely no idea what Mike Phelan did. I have no idea. Obviously, Michael Carrick seemed to be one of the main people who did the coaching, didn't he? But yeah, Mike Phelan, no idea. He's obviously just somebody from the past, isn't it? He was there when Sir Alex was there. I don't really know in this current moment in time what Mike Phelan actually did at Manchester United in this kind of recent spell. No idea. If anybody knows, please do let me know. But for me, I don't know. I have no idea. Right, let's move on to the next story, though. Let's talk a little bit about Pellistri, because this is somebody, as you guys all know, I really, really like. So Fabrizio Romano has been talking about Pellistri today, and he says Manchester United now consider Pellistri's new deal one of the priorities, as talks already took place in April and during the summer. Talks over a new long-term deal are set to advance soon. So it does look like we will be tying Pellistri down to a new long-term contract, which is absolutely incredible. I think that is definitely the right decision. But what I will say on this, right, if we give him a new contract, we need to start actually playing him. Like, we can't just bring him in and then just not actually play him. Like, what's the point? It's completely stupid. But let me know what you think the future for Pellistri is. Do you think they're just giving him a new contract to try and, you know, retain his value? Do you think he actually has a future at Manchester United? Can you see him playing regularly for Manchester United, or do you just think this is another way of Manchester United trying to retain an asset? Because that is all the Glazers think about, isn't it? At the end of the day, guys, you've got to remember that they just think of players as assets, right? They gave Johnny Evans a contract. They gave Phil Jones a contract. They give out these contracts to people a lot of the time based on nothing, really. I think Pellistri, though, he is somebody who, for me, definitely does need a new contract, and he definitely does have a future at the club for me. I just don't see how he's going to get in there. One thing that is worth mentioning, right, is obviously Bielsa, the former Leeds manager, has just taken over as the Uruguay boss. And apparently Bielsa has said that Pellistri is going to play a key role in his plans for Uruguay. So that's obviously really positive. Obviously, he started for Uruguay over the international break. I'm not sure how he did, to be honest. I haven't really been following the Uruguay football. But if there is anybody who follows Uruguay, do let me know how Pellistri did. So they beat Chile 3-1. And did he start? Yeah, so Pellistri started in that game. He played the whole 90 minutes in that game, Pellistri, against Chile, a 3-0 win. He also, by the looks of it, played against Cuba as well, I think. No, he didn't play against Cuba. He just played against Chile, but they are playing again. I think it's tonight. Yeah, so Pellistri, Ecuador are playing Uruguay tonight. So anybody who is got a bit of free time tonight, it does look like Pellistri will be starting against Ecuador, 10 o'clock kickoff UK time. So if you are interested in that, go and check it out. But I definitely think giving him a new deal is 100% the right decision. And you know what? I would love to see him get some game time. I really, really would. And I think that he needs to get game time. Okay? I think he does. I think he deserves it. I think he deserves it more than Sancho. I really, really do. And I think that although that it's good that Erik ten Hag and Sancho are making up in some ways, because Erik ten Hag's going to be judged on this, right? The mainstream media will say, look how he handled the Ronaldo situation. Look how he handled the David De Gea situation. Look how he handled the Sancho situation, you know? People from outside of our fan base will be judging Erik ten Hag. They'll be judging Erik ten Hag from how he handles the players. And some people thought the way he handled Ronaldo was poor. Some people thought the way that he handled De Gea was poor. And I think that some people will even try and blame the Sancho situation on him. So I think that from Erik ten Hag's perspective, he's putting his neck on the line here, right? If he brings Sancho back and it doesn't then work, he's the one who's going to be blamed for it. And he knows that because he's losing all sense of authority if he brings him back in. And I did think that this was the chance for... I thought this was the chance for Pellistri, I did. But I think this Saturday will be a very, very interesting game. And I have a feeling that Bruno Fernandes is going to play in that right wing position. I think it will be Bruno on the right. I think we'll see Eriksen as the number 10. And I think we'll see a midfield 2 of Amrabat and Casemiro. And you know what? I'm 100% here for it. I would love to see that midfield of Casemiro and Amrabat against Brighton, because you know what? I think we'll go and beat Brighton with that midfield. I'll be concerned if it's Eriksen and Casemiro. I will. I think we'll get overrun. But let me know what you guys think. Let's read out a couple of your comments as well quickly. What's everybody saying? Let's have a look what everyone's saying this evening then. Let's have a read of a few of your comments. Chuck says, who's watching the England game tonight? You know what, mate? I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't really have any interest in international football, English football. I just think that Gareth Southgate is just the most uninspiring manager we've ever had at England. I know this isn't an England channel, but someone's just asked. I literally have zero excitement around England anymore because of Gareth Southgate. He's an absolute idiot. He is. He's terrible. He wouldn't get a job at any team in the Premier League, I don't think. I genuinely don't believe that. And I think he's just sucked all of the love of English national team football out of it for me. I really do. But if you are watching it, obviously I hope it's a good game. I hope you enjoy it. But yeah, for me, I will not be watching it. I'm just going to chill. I'm going to watch some other stuff. But let me know if you guys are going to watch the England game, and let me know what your score predictions are. Mila says I would play Mount as a right winger and Pellistri subs or sometimes starter. Yeah, I have no issue with that. Obviously, Mason Mount did play as a winger for Chelsea in some games, so I think that's not a bad shout. Mila says, would Arsenal, Liverpool, City play Pellistri? I get your point there, mate, but they, Arsenal, fair play to them. They got Martinelli for what, like 6 or 7 million? and then they turned him into this world-class player. Saka was through the youth academy, and they've turned him into this world-class player. So I don't think it's a really fair reason to say, oh, would Arsenal play Pellistri? Well, they bought Martinelli for less money than we paid for Pellistri, didn't we? They bought Martinelli for, I think, about £6 million, something like that. They took a massive risk on him and they started playing him, and it's paid off. You can't just be like, oh, well, Arsenal wouldn't play him. I think they would. I think Manchester City would play, youth players. They bring in people for cheap amounts of money. Arsenal bought Martinelli for €7 million. 3 seasons ago. And I'd say he's one of their best players now, personally. I think so. So my point here is, it's all good and well you bringing in these players from these clubs and trying to develop them. But if that doesn't then happen and they just turn out as being nothing players, then obviously it's a waste. I mean, we paid more for Pellistri than Arsenal paid for Martinelli. We paid €8.5 million, the same summer that Arsenal got Martinelli. So just think of it like that. If we'd have developed Pellistri the same way as Arsenal had developed Martinelli, we might have a first team player. We might have never needed to go and sign Jadon Sancho. We might have never needed to go and sign Antony, because Pellistri could have been one of the best players in the league, couldn't he? So yeah. Lumen says, Kieran, why is Erik ten Hag so hesitant on playing young players? You know what, mate? I'll be honest with you, right? I think the reason why Erik ten Hag doesn't play young players is because of the expectations at Manchester United, okay? I think last season, he had to get top 4. If we'd have finished 7th or 8th, I think there'll be certain people in the fan base who would want him sacked. I genuinely think that. And knowing the Glazers, right? The only thing that the Glazers want is top 4. That's all they care about, the money that you get from the Champions League. Obviously, they know that their Adidas deal is worth less if they're not in the Champions League. The Champions League is the trophy for the Glazers. If we get top 4, the Glazers think we've won a trophy because that's all they care about, right? So I understand why last season Erik ten Hag just played safe, relatively boring, relatively defensive, counter-attacking football, okay? And I get it. He didn't want to throw people in like Pellistri because that was like a risk, wasn't it? He wanted to do tried and tested, relatively boring, the same team as much as he could. It didn't really excite me, to be honest, but I understand it and I respect it because it's Manchester United. You have to, you have to get the results, but it's in the second, the third, the fourth season where I start to say, right, you've had this time here now. Your job should be solidified. You need to now start bringing through these players. We need to see Kobbie Mainoo getting game time. We need to see Pellistri getting game time, Ahmad getting game time, et cetera, et cetera. Like, those people now need to come in because there's no excuse to say, oh, well, he's in his first season. He doesn't want to get sacked. He needs to, make sure that it all works out. That's my take on it. But let me know what you guys think about that one. Do you think that do you think that Erik ten Hag plays enough youth players? Let me know what you're thinking. Do you think that he will start playing more youth in the future? I think it will take a while personally, but let me know what you guys think. Let's see what else you're saying. Somebody says, what happened with Ahmad? We paid like 40 million for a supposed talent who is 21 already and hasn't played a game for us since forever. So Ahmad's got a really bad knee injury. Apparently he's going to be out for most of this year, as in this calendar year. So he should be back in around January. It was a knee injury. I think he had to have surgery on it, which was kept quiet by Manchester United. And just to be clear, we paid 21 million euros for him, which isn't 40 million. It's what's that in pounds? We paid about £18 million for him. So, yeah. I agree with you, though, mate. I completely agree. We bring in these people. As I just said, we're not the type of team that develops people. Jude Bellingham came to Carrington. He looked around before he went to Dortmund. He decided to go to Dortmund. Why did he decide to go to Dortmund? Because he knew, if I go to Dortmund, within 2 or 3 years, I'll be playing for Real Madrid. And that happened, didn't it? He probably looked at Manchester United and thought, if I go and join Manchester United now, I'm going to be on the bench behind Fred and McTominay. They don't give youth a chance. And that's something that does upset me because we always used to be known as a team that would bring through youth players. And I don't think, other than like Rashford, Kobbie Mainoo hasn't really broken through yet, has he? But other than that, when you actually look at our starting 11, like, who is there from the youth academy? Obviously Rashford, obviously Greenwood, who's now gone. Other than that, is there anybody? I can't think of anybody off the top of my head from the starting 11. I think Rashford's the only one, isn't he, from the youth academy, who's directly come through the youth academy. Obviously, there's people like McTominay. There's a couple of other people like that, but yeah. Somebody says Pellistri is miles better than Chong. I mean, yeah, Chong was poor. Simon says, do you think we need to have a poor season to ensure the Glazers finally leave? I'll be honest with you, mate. I don't want to be negative because, that's not something I do on this channel, but I don't think the Glazers I don't think a poor season will make a hell of a lot of difference by way of the Glazers leaving or not, because even if we have a poor season, the club will still be worth the same amount of money. And I don't know how, but it just is. It's because of the brand. It's because of me. It's because of you. It's because of all of the people in this chat who support Manchester United through thick and thin. They know that they've got us underneath their thumb. They know that if we lose games, we're still going to support our club. How many of you, right, if we lose against Brighton, are going to say, I don't support Manchester United anymore, I'm going to go and support Arsenal? That never happens. And you know what? I don't know a single person who's ever changed football clubs. And like, I can't remember who said this to me. I can't remember anyway. Somebody said that you're more likely to... They almost compared it to like a marriage, you know? A football club to you is like a marriage. It's something for life, isn't it? That you swear into and you commit to. You don't lose your football club, do you? You don't say after a couple of years, oh, I don't like Manchester United anymore, I'm going to go and support Manchester City. Like, that just doesn't happen. You support them through thick and thin. And the Glazers know that. The Glazers know that whatever happens, we will support the team. There'll be people who go to the football matches every time. The season tickets there's hundreds of thousands of people waiting for the season tickets. The whole season, right? Every single home game sold out in about an hour's time. 1 hour from when they launched the tickets, every single ticket for the home games was gone. Crazy. Like, mad. And we're talking like millions and millions of pounds of ticket revenue in 1 hour, completely sold out. And that's why I don't think it makes a hell of a lot of difference, because they're still going to make the money and they're still going to retain the value of the club. It would only be if we got like relegated or something really bad happened that, you know, then it would maybe alert them. But yeah, as long as we stay in the Premier League, I don't really think it's going to make too much of a difference from the financial side of things. Let's see what else everybody is saying. Let's read out a couple more questions. Irvin says, Kieran, do you think Erik ten Hag will have a beer watching the game tonight and laughing at Maguire? I mean, I hope not, because that would be a bit harsh. But I mean, he might do. Who knows? I mean, it's a bit of a silly question, isn't it? But you know, who knows? Maybe he will. Right, let's move on to the next story, though. Let's talk a little bit about Gary O'Driscoll. Everybody's probably sat there thinking, what the hell is this idiot talking about? Who is Gary O'Driscoll? And when I start telling you who he is, you're probably going to think, why the hell are you telling us about this? But hear me out. I do think it's important, and I do think there is some significance to what I'm telling you. Now, Gary O'Driscoll is one of the most highly rated medical doctors for injuries, for all the rest of it in the Premier League. And he is set to leave Arsenal after 15 years at the club. He's currently their head of sports and medicine, and he is about to join Manchester United. He joins the club on Monday as the new head of sports and medicine. And you know what? Considering our injury crisis, I think this is absolutely massive. I do. He's regarded as one of the best in his field in the Premier League. There was countless other clubs, you know, Manchester City's, other clubs who were interested in trying to bring him to their team, and Manchester United have managed to secure his services. So Gary O'Driscoll will become our new head of medicine and head of sports medicine, right? Which, when you think of our injuries at the moment, you know, you've got obviously Kobe Mainoo, you've got Mason Mount, you've got Malacia, Luke Shaw, Varane. You know, we've got about 10 injuries at the moment. So bringing in somebody who is this elite in medicine and sports and you know, fitness and all the rest of it, that's massive for me. So let's hope he does well. Let's wish him all the best. Gary O'Driscoll is his name. If you want to go and have a look and do a bit of research into him and what he's done in his career, I would suggest you do that. And I do think it's relevant because, you know, it's a massive, massive issue for Manchester United, the injuries. It is. And I think that this is a good step forward. But let me know what you think about that one. Voice of Reason says, would you play Diallo over Pellistri if fit? Would I play Diallo over Pellistri? I don't know. I think Ahmad and Pellistri are kind of on the same level for me at the moment. Obviously, Ahmad had a really, really good season at Sunderland, but the fact that Pellistri starts for Uruguay now at international level, I think that's pretty impressive. I do. But yeah, I would say that Pellistri and Ahmad are kind of level for me. But do let me know in the comment section, guys. That was a really good question from Voice of Reason, so thank you for that. Let me know in the comment section, who would you start if both are fit, Ahmad or Pellistri? Who would you start in that position? Let me know your reasons why in the comment section, and let me know your thoughts. Mila says, will you watch the Brighton game live? Yes, we will be doing a watch along for the Brighton game. What else we got? Gabriel says, I'd go for Diallo. Diallo's got faster pace, fits a counter-attacking strategy. Pellistri if we have a possession-based strategy. Yeah, that's fair. I think, I agree with you in some ways there. I think both of them have different characteristics, different attributes. So it's a relatively difficult question to answer, because at the moment I would say they're both kind of in the same playing field. Neither one is better than the other, in my opinion, at the moment, but they're different. But yeah, let me know what you think about that one. I'm going to read out a couple more questions. Paul says he'd go for Pellistri. Hendrik says, why question Ten Hag never play 3 defenders in United? I assume you mean why does he not play 3 centre-backs? I'm not that convinced on a kind of 5-back formation. I think it's a bit too defensive for me. I think it does work in a defensive kind of setup, but I don't really want to see, Harry Maguire, Varane and Martinez as our 3 centre-backs. I don't want to see that, really. I would rather just have 2 centre-backs and have more players pushing forward up the pitch. Somebody says, "What? So many injuries. Why are we playing the fitness coach? Clearly, he's not doing his job." Yeah, mate, I hear you. It's frustrating. It is. People in the chat saying tonight we get to watch McTominay versus Maguire. God, that's why I'm not watching this game tonight. The fact that you have to watch Harry Maguire start for England, and you also see Scott McTominay, who's probably going to put in a 10 out of 10, and then still not get picked on the weekend. It just kind of says it all, really. I just think international football is a completely different game, isn't it? It really is. And I'm not going to be watching the England game tonight. Right. Anyway, I'm going to see if there's any more questions quickly. Somebody says, Erik ten Hag is used to using flops like Blind in Ajax, Sebastian Haller. The youths have no chance. I don't really agree with you there, mate, to be honest. I think Erik ten Hag has a really good track record of developing players, so I don't really think it's fair to say that he doesn't give people a chance. I honestly just think, right, make of this what you will, I honestly just think that last season he had so much pressure on him, right? He had to get top 4. That would have been his goal. And if he hadn't, all of the press would have been even worse to him. There would be people in the fan base saying, get him out. He didn't get top 4. We should have kept Ollie and all the rest of it. So I think he had to play the way he did last season. And that's why I'm saying I'm not going to be judging him even this season. I think the next couple of seasons is when you start to actually paint a bit of a picture on Erik ten Hag. We need to start seeing Erik ten Hag ball because we haven't seen that yet. We've seen glimpses of it. We've seen glimpses of this 70% possession, total domination style football. But we haven't seen it for 90 minutes long enough. We see it for 10 minutes in a game and then it kind of drops off. And I think that's on the players, to be honest. I don't think, Erik ten Hag's job is to get out there and to be, shouting stuff at them to make them do it. Because if they just don't have the mentality for it, then they obviously aren't going to be able to do it, are they? It's as black and white as that. Nick says, I don't care if Sancho apologises. He's still not good enough. Mate, I get it, like, completely. Sancho has not shown us enough since he's been at this club. He's not shown us enough to warrant the 75 million price tag. He doesn't show enough to earn the 350 grand a week he gets. But the thing you have to remember is, which I always tell you guys, it was Ed Woodward and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer who thought that giving him 350 grand a week was a sensible option. It was Ed Woodward and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer who thought that giving Dortmund 75 million pounds was a sensible option. It was Ed Woodward and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer who didn't do their due diligence and check whether he'd had disciplinary situations in the past at Manchester City and Dortmund, which he had. So it's easy enough to point all the blame at Jadon Sancho, but for me, I think just as much of the blame is on Ed Woodward and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, because when you look at all of the mistakes of the past, Maguire, obviously Sancho to some extent, it all points back to those two people. So just remember that. Remember who we should be aiming this anger at. It should be aimed at the board. It should be aimed at the director of football, John Murtagh, Richard Arnold, because they haven't done anything really to improve, in my opinion. I think it just carries on. Irvin says, will Sancho start tonight? I don't think so, somewhat, mate. I think he's in New York at the moment, I saw. So, yeah, I don't think it's... Somebody says the wage is not on Ollie, it's on the board. Yeah, I agree, but at the same time, Ollie would have had somewhat a say in the players that were brought in. He wanted Maguire. Obviously, Jadon Sancho would have been another player that he would have been consulted about. He brings him in and he doesn't even play him, so you can't not blame him. Right, I'm going to wrap the show up here, though, guys. Thank you so much to everyone who has joined me this evening. I will, of course, be back at 8 a.m. UK time tomorrow. If anything breaks between now and then, obviously I will go live. If we get any news about the Jadon Sancho situation, maybe he's going to do a statement, maybe something will come out. Of course, I will go live. Please do make sure to smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel if you are new. This has been Daily Red Devil. I've been Kieran, and I'll catch you all later.